Right now, somewhere in Australia, someone just crossed $250,000 in savings and investments. And for the first time in their life, money feels completely different. Not because they bought a Lamborghini, not because they moved into a waterfront mansion, but because something invisible just happened. Their money started working harder than they do. And if you've never reached that number before, it's difficult to explain how powerful that shift feels. Because after $250,000, wealth stops feeling theoretical. It starts feeling real. It changes how you think, how you spend, how you sleep at night. And most importantly, it changes how fast your wealth starts growing from this point forward. Today, we're breaking down why everything changes after your first $250,000 in Australia, and why this milestone matters far more than most people realize. Because most people think becoming wealthy is about earning more money. But the real shift happens when your investments start generating meaningful money on their own. And for a huge number of Australians, that tipping point begins around $250,000. Here's why. At an average 8% annual return, roughly in line with long-term share market performance, a $250,000 portfolio generates around $20,000 per year without you adding another dollar. Pause for a second and really think about that. That's over $1,600 every month quietly appearing in the background while you're sleeping, driving to work, scrolling your phone, or standing in line for coffee. And here's the part that shocks people most. Many Australians struggle to manually save $20,000 a year anymore. Rents exploded. Mortgages exploded. Groceries, insurance, utilities, everything feels heavier now. So when your investments start producing what many people can't even personally save anymore, the entire game changes. Before $250,000, you are the engine. Your salary carries everything. Your discipline carries everything. Your savings rate carries everything. Every step forward feels manual, slow, exhausting. But after $250,000, your portfolio becomes an engine too. And psychologically, that changes everything. Because before this stage, money feels fragile. A car repair hurts. Unexpected bills feel stressful. Losing your job feels terrifying. There's this constant low-level anxiety sitting quietly in the background of life that never fully disappears. But once you build real financial reserves, something starts shifting mentally. Maybe now you've got a 6-month emergency fund, super quietly compounding, ETFs growing in the background, home equity increasing every month. For the first time, there's breathing room. And that reduction in financial stress creates second-order effects most people never see coming. You negotiate harder at work because you're no longer desperate. You stop tolerating toxic environments just to survive. You start making decisions based on long-term value instead of short-term panic. That's the part nobody talks about. Wealth changes your behavior, long before it changes your lifestyle. And this is where things start getting really interesting. Because once people cross this milestone, they usually stop obsessing over income and start understanding leverage. Now let's talk investing, because this is where the math starts becoming almost unfair. When your portfolio is small, market drops feel emotional. You lose $2,000 and it feels painful because that money took months of work to save. But at $250,000, your mindset slowly starts changing. A 10% market correction suddenly means your portfolio drops $25,000. Sounds terrifying, until you realize something important. Historically, major downturns are often followed by massive recoveries. And this is exactly where average investors and wealthy investors start separating. Most people panic during crashes. Experienced investors? They start seeing opportunity. That mindset shift alone changes financial futures. Because wealthy investors understand something most people never truly learn. The market rewards patience far more than intelligence. And here's where compounding becomes impossible to ignore. At 8% annual returns, $250,000 becomes roughly $500,000 in around 9 years, even if you never add another cent. That sounds insane at first. But almost nobody stops investing there. Now imagine compounding running quietly in the background, while you continue adding even $2,000 a month. Suddenly, the timeline compresses dramatically. This is why the journey from $250,000 to $500,000 often feels way faster than the journey from $0 to $250,000. Because compounding is brutally slow at the beginning. Then suddenly, it feels unfairly fast later. And in Australia, property adds another layer to this story entirely. A lot of Australians hit a $250,000 net worth through some combination of super, home equity, ETFs, cash savings. And once multiple assets begin compounding simultaneously, wealth acceleration becomes visible in real time. Your super grows, your property appreciates, your ETF portfolio compounds. Your income usually rises through your 30s and 40s. Suddenly, multiple wealth engines are running at the same time. But there's a trap here too, and this is exactly where many people destroy their momentum. Lifestyle creep. This is the phase where people upgrade everything. The nicer car, the bigger mortgage, luxury holidays, subscriptions they barely use. And despite building a $250,000 foundation, they still somehow feel financially stuck. Because wealth is not built by income alone. It's built by protecting the gap between what comes in and what goes out. The people who reach financial independence earlier usually aren't the highest earners. They're the people who protected that gap long enough for compounding to eventually take over. Now here's the emotional shift nobody expects. Before $250,000, many people constantly feel behind. Friends buying homes, people online flexing fake luxury lifestyles, colleagues earning more money. Comparison becomes exhausting. But once you cross this milestone, something strange starts happening. You stop obsessing over appearances. Because deep down, you know your money is quietly building momentum, even when nobody else can see it yet. You stop chasing status and start chasing freedom. Freedom to leave bad jobs. Freedom to take time off. Freedom to help family. Freedom to make decisions without fear. That's when wealth finally becomes real. Not when you buy something expensive, but when money stops controlling every decision you make. And here's the craziest part of all. Most Australians never experience this shift. Not because it's impossible, but because they quit too early. They stop investing during downturns. They cash out for lifestyle upgrades. Or they convince themselves wealth building is hopeless before compounding ever has time to work. Mathematically, the hardest part of the entire journey is usually the first $250,000. That's where progress feels invisible. That's where discipline matters most. That's where most people give up. But if you survive that phase, the curve finally starts bending in your favor. And once that happens, wealth starts moving differently. So if you're still building toward your first $250,000, don't underestimate how important this stage really is. Every contribution matters. Every smart decision matters. Every extra year invested matters. Because one day you'll wake up, check your portfolio, and realize your money made more last month than you used to save in an entire year. And that's the moment everything changes. If this changed the way you think about wealth, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.